So we have a huge, more than a dozen critical minerals that have been identified, that have been discovered in Liberia. All those who want.
Imagine this, 3 million ounces of pure gold, shimmering just beneath the surface, buried under the rich red dirt of Liberia's remote southeast. That's enough gold to wipe out the nation's entire debt. Or maybe, if you prefer, build 2,000 kilometers of brand new paved roads, finally connecting communities that have been isolated for generations. Or, for a more personal touch, it's enough to buy every single Liberian citizen a shiny new motorcycle. Sounds like a dream, doesn't it? What's truly wild is that until just over a decade ago, almost no one believed this kind of treasure was even there. Liberia, a country often overlooked in the grand scheme of global resource wealth, was about to unveil a secret that could rewrite its future. For generations, local fishermen casting their nets along the winding Dugbe River had a little secret. They'd rinse gravel in their weathered palms, watching tiny iridescent flecks catch the sunlight. They laugh in the sun, they'd say, a quiet, almost mythical description of the gold dust they occasionally found. But outside of these local whispers, the idea of significant gold in Liberia was largely dismissed. Geologists, flying home from more established mining hubs like Ghana, would often chuckle at the tales. For a long time, Liberia had been considered a geological afterthought, a bit player compared to the diamond rushes of Kimberley or the gold belts of West Africa's other nations. It simply wasn't on the serious exploration map. Then, something shifted. In 2009, a small, intrepid Canadian junior mining company called Hummingbird Resources decided to take a punt. They weren't swayed by the prevailing skepticism. Instead, they looked at faded, almost forgotten government maps from the 1960s, old geological surveys that most people had probably tossed aside. On one of these, they spotted a shear zone, a fracture in the Earth's crust that looked to their trained eyes like a crack in a dinner plate. It was a subtle sign, but enough to spark a flicker of hope. Taking a leap of faith, they helicoptered in a drill rig, one so light it weighed less than a pickup truck, into the dense, humid jungle. It was a gamble, a shot in the dark. They spun the first hole, and what they found was nothing short of astonishing. 34 meters, grading at 3.2 grams per ton. That one intercept, that single core sample, was so rich, so promising, it effectively paid for the entire initial exploration program, even before they'd fully unpacked all their equipment. It was the first undeniable proof that the fishermen's whispers weren't just folklore. They were a geological prophecy. This wasn't just a whisper anymore. It was a shout. That initial discovery was just the beginning. By 2011, persistent drilling and careful analysis had outlined not one, but two significant deposits, christened Dugbe F and Tucson, together boasting more than 2 million ounces of gold. And the good news kept coming. A revised feasibility study in 2022 pushed that total past an incredible 3.3 million ounces. Let's put that into perspective. At today's gold price, which has been remarkably strong, that's north of $6 billion in gross metal value. To give you an idea of the sheer scale, that's roughly a fifth of Liberia's entire GDP in a single deposit. This isn't just a big find, it's a game changer. The ore body itself is long enough to stretch across Monrovia's International Airport runway, with tips still dangling into the Atlantic Ocean. Now, you might hear that the average grade is 1.5 grams per ton and think, that's a bit skinny by South African standards. And you'd be right if you were comparing it to the ultra-deep, high-grade veins of the Witwatersrand. But here's the clever bit. The ore at Dugbe is soft, it's oxidized, and crucially, it's within 150 meters of the surface. What does that mean in mining terms? It means you won't need expensive, high-energy blasting to get to it. You could practically shovel it out of the ground, making the extraction process significantly cheaper and less complex. Then there's the strip ratio, which is a lazy 1.8 to 1. For those not fluent in mining parlance, that's almost cheating. A strip ratio tells you how much waste rock you have to move for every unit of ore. A low number like 1.8 means you're digging up very little waste to get to your valuable gold, which drastically reduces costs and environmental impact. These aren't just abstract numbers. They represent a rare combination of geological fortune and economic viability that makes the Dugbe project truly exceptional. When those first drill bits started turning, Liberia was just beginning to claw its way back from an unimaginable nightmare. 14 years of brutal civil conflict. The country was, quite literally, on its knees. Infrastructure wasn't just poor, it was largely a rumor. There was no power grid outside the capital, Monrovia, which itself struggled with unreliable electricity. Paved roads to the southeast, where the gold lay, were non-existent, making transportation a Herculean task. Even the port, essential for exporting any future concentrate, was barely capable of handling cargo, and only if you squinted hard and hoped for the best. Yet, amidst this daunting landscape, the Liberian government understood one critical truth. Mineral revenue offered the fastest, most direct route to solvency, to rebuilding their shattered nation. They needed to attract foreign investment, but they also needed to ensure that this time the country truly benefited. So, they inked a deal with Hummingbird, a landmark agreement designed to protect Liberia's interests. The state secured a 10% free carried stake in the project, meaning they owned 10% without having to pay any of the development costs, a truly significant benefit. On top of that, they negotiated a 3% royalty on all gold produced and a 25% tax on profits. In exchange for this, Hummingbird was granted a 30-year mining license and a crucial promise that their vital equipment and supplies wouldn't get lost in the labyrinthine bureaucracy of customs. Both sides shook hands on this ambitious partnership, then immediately faced their next monumental challenge: finding someone, anyone, to build a 650-kilometer haul road through untouched jungle. This wasn't just about mining. It was about laying the very foundations for national recovery. Hummingbird Resources, being listed on the London Stock Exchange, was great at raising what's called 5-year money, capital for exploration and initial development. But to build a mine the size of Dugbe, you need 15-year money, the kind of long-term, patient capital that can withstand the ups and downs of a multi-year construction project. They needed a partner, someone with significantly deeper pockets, and crucially, a higher appetite for risk. Especially in a frontier market like Liberia. That's where Pasofino Gold came in. Listed in Toronto, Pasofino had cut its teeth in places like the Democratic Republic of Congo, DRC, a region where mining isn't for the faint of heart. They knew how to pour concrete and build mines where the map might otherwise simply say, "Here be dragons." They understood the complexities of operating in challenging environments, navigating logistics, and working with local communities. In late 2022, Pasofino made its move, buying the remainder of the project from Hummingbird for a combination of shares and cash, taking 100% control and putting them firmly in the driver's seat. Initially, the market, ever fickle, barely registered the news. Gold equities were out of fashion, investors were looking elsewhere, and Pasofino's ticker barely twitched. It seemed like just another junior miner making a deal. But then, something happened that no one quite predicted. Bullion, the price of physical gold, ripped past $3,000 an ounce. Suddenly, the market woke up. Pasofino's stock, almost as if on cue, promptly doubled. The timing was impeccable, and it transformed what was already a solid project into an absolute powerhouse, attracting renewed attention and investor confidence. Pasofino was now positioned to capitalize on a surging gold market, turning their bold acquisition into a truly golden opportunity. So you found all this gold, you've got the permits, you've got the financing. But how exactly do you get it out of the ground in a place like Liberia? Picture a giant sandbox, a truly massive one, perhaps the size of Manhattan. But instead of skyscrapers, it's covered in dense jungle. First, you delicately scrape off the jungle itself. But this isn't just clearing, it's an opportunity. The valuable hardwood logs are harvested and sold, providing a welcome stream of extra credit that can actually help pay for things like the camp kitchens, feeding hundreds of workers. It's a smart way to offset initial costs and utilize resources responsibly. Next, you begin to dig a shallow open pit, working in methodical strips. Each bench or step in the pit will be about 5 meters high. Trucks, like giant mechanical ants, will trundle back and forth, hauling the ore to a massive crusher that hums tirelessly at 1,200 tons per hour. This machine chews up the rock, reducing it to a fine gravel. From there, the gravel goes into giant mills, where it's ground down even further into a fine dust, almost like flour. This dust is then mixed with water and a carefully controlled dilute solution of cyanide. Now, before you panic about cyanide, understand that in modern gold mining, it's used in very low concentrations and under strict environmental controls. The cyanide acts as a solvent, dissolving the microscopic gold particles. The gold then hitches a ride onto activated carbon, which has a natural affinity for gold. Once the carbon is loaded with gold, it's treated with a hot, caustic solution to elute or strip the gold off. Then, using zinc dust, the gold is precipitated out of the solution. This creates a crude gold-silver alloy known as doré bars, typically around 80% pure. These doré bars aren't quite ready for your jewelry box. They're flown to specialized refineries in places like Switzerland, where they undergo further processing to achieve the ultra-high purity required for global markets. And what about the waste? The tailings, the remaining rock and water mixture, don't just get dumped. They're carefully processed and then returned to the mined-out pits, which are subsequently revegetated and planted with crops like cassava. Why? Because no one, especially not a responsible mining company, wants to leave behind a permanent, barren moonscape. The goal is to minimize the long-term footprint and restore the land as much as possible. Building a modern mine in a place like southeastern Liberia isn't just about digging for gold. It's about building an entire industrial ecosystem from scratch. And that comes with a whole host of logistical headaches. For example, at full tilt, the Dugbe operation will sip a staggering 33 megawatts of electricity. To put that into perspective, Liberia's entire national grid currently produces a mere 126 megawatts. And a significant chunk of that is already promised to Firestone's massive rubber plantation. So, relying on the national grid simply isn't an option. The solution: the mine will have to build its own power plant, initially relying on heavy fuel generators. It's an expensive but necessary investment. The long-term plan, however, is to transition to cleaner, more sustainable hydropower, assuming the nearby St. John River Dam project ever gets the financing it needs. This highlights the interconnectedness of large-scale development and the ripple effect a project like Dugbe can have on national infrastructure planning. Then, there's the issue of getting the gold concentrate to market. Concentrate trucks will eventually trundle down a freshly carved, purpose-built road, a significant undertaking in itself, to the port of Greenville. From there, a 120-meter barge will whisk the cargo to a mothership waiting offshore. Building this dedicated transport corridor alone adds an estimated $90 million to the capital expenditure. But here's where the benefits extend beyond just the mine. This new road isn't just for gold. It opens up the entire region for other economic activities, providing a vital lifeline for cocoa and palm oil farmers who currently have to haul their heavy sacks on head-borne bamboo poles, often for days. This infrastructure investment, while driven by gold, could unlock agricultural potential and transform lives across the region. The Dugbe project isn't just about rocks and machinery. It's about people. At its peak, construction will employ around 1,100 workers, a massive economic injection into the region. Once operations are fully underway, a steady workforce of 700 will keep the mine running. And here's a crucial detail. The Liberian Mines Ministry, with surprising zeal, enforces a strict clause that mandates 90% of the workforce must be Liberian by year 3 of operations. This isn't just a token gesture. It's a commitment to local empowerment. But it's not enough to just hire locally. To ensure these new employees are skilled and safe, every single worker clocks a mandatory 120 hours of classroom training. This isn't just about showing them how to operate heavy machinery. It covers essential skills like safety protocols, literacy, and first aid. To facilitate this, the company has built a state-of-the-art training center in the capital, Monrovia. And in a brilliant move of community engagement, this center doubles as a public internet cafe on weekends, providing vital access to information and connection for local residents. There's a running joke among the locals. The biggest export from Dugbe might not actually be gold. It could be a new generation of freshly certified heavy equipment operators, mechanics, and technicians who, once trained, are so highly skilled that they're headhunted by Ghanaian mines, paying double the wages. It's a testament to the quality of the training and the transferable skills being developed, creating a human capital spillover that could benefit the entire West African mining sector. This project is building not just a mine, but a skilled workforce. A legacy that could far outlast the gold itself. Liberia's mining history, like that of many developing nations, isn't without its scars. The country's last major gold mine, New Liberty, left a troubling legacy. Rivers in the area were tinged with arsenic and cyanide, and stories circulated of dead fish floating belly up next to children doing their laundry. Past operations, including those by companies like Avasoro Resources, have been linked to widespread pollution, community health issues, and ecological damage, with artisanal mining around gold-rich areas like Sam Beach, exacerbating deforestation and river siltation. It's a painful reminder of what happens when environmental stewardship takes a back seat. The backers of the Dugbe project know this history all too well. They understand that even one repeat scandal, one instance of environmental negligence, could sink the entire project, both financially and reputationally. So they're trying a different approach, one built on transparency and accountability. They've appointed an independent panel, chaired by a former EPA minister, to oversee their environmental practices. They publish effluent data online every single month, making their environmental footprint public and auditable. And perhaps most innovatively, they fund a local watchdog organization that has the power to halt operations with a single phone call if it detects serious breaches. Is it perfect? No. No project of this scale ever is. But the early signs are encouraging. Satellite imagery shows regrown vegetation on older exploration pads, demonstrating a commitment to rehabilitation. Community radios, often the most trusted source of local information, report river pH levels back to normal ranges. For a country with virtually zero historical baseline environmental data, this level of obsessive monitoring and public reporting is a monumental step forward. It's a conscious effort to break from the past and prove that large-scale mining can be done responsibly. Mineral wealth, in theory, should make a country rich, Yet in Liberia, despite its abundant natural resources, the GDP per capita still hovers south of $700. This stark reality is a classic manifestation of the resource curse, where a nation rich in natural resources paradoxically struggles with underdevelopment and poverty. The culprit, as many experts agree, isn't geology, it's governance. Liberia has a history riddled with contracts signed in secret, royalties siphoned sideways into private pockets, and villagers evicted from their ancestral lands, with barely a week's notice and inadequate compensation. Weak regulatory enforcement and limited community participation have only deepened these wounds. The Dugbe Project is actively trying to write a different script to reverse this curse. They're implementing practices designed to ensure that the wealth generated genuinely benefits the Liberian people. Instead of backroom deals, they hold public hearings under mango trees, inviting community members to voice their concerns and understand the project. Compensation for land or displacement is paid via mobile money, a system that ensures every single cent is traceable and reaches the intended recipient, bypassing corrupt intermediaries. Perhaps most impactful is their innovative royalty-sharing formula. 30% of the royalties go directly to county development boards, bypassing the central government in Monrovia entirely. This ensures that the money stays local, funding projects directly identified and managed by the communities themselves, before the capital can even sniff it. The early evidence is incredibly encouraging. County budgets in the project area have already doubled. And the local high school, which once struggled, finally boasts a science lab with more than just a single dusty microscope. These aren't just statistics. They're tangible improvements in people's lives, offering a glimmer of hope that Liberia can, this time, turn buried treasure into lasting prosperity. So what's the roadmap for this ambitious project? The updated feasibility study, which will incorporate rising gold prices and refined cost estimates, is due in the fourth quarter of 2025. Following that, the project aims to secure its full financing wrap by mid-2026. Groundbreaking, the ceremonial start of construction should happen shortly after. If all goes to plan, the first pour of gold, that triumphant moment when the first doré bar emerges, is slated for 2028. Now, skeptics might understandably note that these dates have slipped twice already. Mining projects, especially those in challenging environments, are rarely perfectly on schedule. But optimists, looking at the bigger picture, point to a crucial factor: gold prices. Since the last schedule was set, gold has risen a staggering 40%. This dramatic increase has fattened the project's internal rate of return, IRR, to well above 50%. For investors, a high IRR means the project is highly profitable and generates cash quickly. If bullion stays anywhere near its current elevated levels, the Dugbe mine is projected to repay its entire $397 million capital expenditure in under 4 years. That's lightning fast by industry standards, where payback periods often stretch for a decade or more. After that incredibly rapid repayment, every single extra ounce of gold produced is mostly gravy, pure profit for shareholders, and, crucially, a steady stream of tax revenue for the Liberian government. This project isn't just about finding gold. It's about finding a pathway to economic transformation with a timeline that, despite past adjustments, now looks incredibly compelling. If you're fascinated by how a single, world-class gold deposit can potentially flip the fortunes of an entire nation, then you absolutely need to hit that subscribe button. I've got more compelling West African mining stories on the way, diving into the projects and people shaping the continent's future. And I want to hear from you. Drop a comment below telling me which gold project you think will be next to break the 3 million ounce mark. And please, Share this video with anyone who still mistakenly believes that gold only comes from places like South Africa or Nevada. There's a whole world of discovery out there. The Dugbe Gold Project is so much more than just another pit in the ground. It's a colossal wager, a bold statement that Liberia can, this time, successfully dodge the notorious resource curse that has stalked its development since its very founding in 1847. With an impressive 3.3 million ounces in reserve, a government that finally owns a significant slice of the action and benefits directly, and a company betting nearly $500 million on the conviction that transparency and good governance can ultimately outrun corruption, the stakes couldn't possibly be higher. If Pasofino and Liberia manage to pull this off, and all the signs are pointing to a new, more responsible model, this find won't just be celebrated as the largest gold discovery in Liberian history. It might just be the one that teaches the world how to truly turn buried treasure into lasting prosperity for its people.